All right, let's dive right in. Picture this for a second. You're 16 years old. You're staring down a landscape completely dominated by one massive monopolistic force, the Mughal Empire. I mean, they control literally everything. Endless wealth, massive armies, ruthless generals with decades of experience. And you? You've got absolutely none of that. Most people would look at your situation and think, yeah, this rebellion, this little startup kingdom is going to fail on day one. But over the next few years, you're going to become one of the most dangerous, disruptive warrior kings in human history. Your name is Shivaji. Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're not just dusting off a history book. We're looking at the ultimate masterclass in taking down a monopoly.
So the million-dollar question, how do you actually overthrow a monopoly? If you're a new founder today or a leader trying to break into a space completely dominated by heavyweights, how do you even survive? Just imagine being totally surrounded by powerful enemies who have infinitely more capital and resources than you do. You can't outspend them, right? And you definitely can't outmuscle them in a traditional head-to-head fight. So you've got to outthink them.
It's the ultimate David versus Goliath scenario. On one side, you have the Mughal Empire. Think of them as your massive legacy corporate giant. They have endless wealth, massive territory, and huge armies. But, like a lot of massive corporations, they're bloated. They move slow. On the other side, you got Shivaji, 16 years old, no gold, no massive army. He is the ultimate underfunded, scrappy startup founder. He has nothing to rely on but pure strategy, incredible agility, and the absolute loyalty of his team.
So here's our 5-phase blueprint to overthrowing a monopoly today. Phase 1, surviving a volatile market. Phase 2, your first market entry. Phase 3, disrupting the industry giants. Phase 4, escaping professional deadlocks. And finally, Phase 5, scaling a lasting legacy.
Let's kick things off with Phase 1, surviving a volatile market and building that essential founder's mindset.
Back in the 1600s, India was absolute chaos. We're talking a highly volatile market of warring empires, but Shivaji wasn't raised to just sit back and be a comfortable royal in the middle of all this madness. His mother, Jizabai, instilled some rock-solid core values in him early on: courage, leadership, and freedom. And these weren't just nice words. They became his exact foundation for mentoring his very first core team. He didn't just go out and hire a bunch of mercenaries. Instead, he used inclusive leadership to unite incredibly diverse groups of local people under those shared values, building a deeply loyal, highly motivated coalition.
You know, unlike other princes back then, who were perfectly happy playing middle management for a larger empire and just soaking up the perks, Shivaji had a totally different vision. He didn't care about luxury. He dreamt of building his own kingdom completely from scratch. Now that is the true founder's mindset. He had a crystal-clear set of values and a long-term vision for establishing a sovereign, sustainable company culture rather than just cashing in on a quick, short-term opportunity.
Which brings us to Phase 2, your first market entry, the first fort.
At the unbelievably young age of 16, Shivaji captured his first fort. In the modern business world, this is exactly like a lean startup launching its minimum viable product against totally entrenched, well-funded incumbents. It's absolute make or break. So how did he actually pull it off? Well, he relied entirely on strategy, deep local knowledge, and that diverse coalition of friends and mentors he'd built. This was a surgical market entry. He found a single vulnerability, one single fort, and executed his plan flawlessly.
But hey, success breeds attention, right? As his little rebellion started gaining territory, taking down one fort after another, the whispers across the region started getting louder. Suddenly, this teenage warrior was actively stealing market share from the ruling powers. And eventually, these localized disruptions angered the absolute biggest fish in the pond, the Mughal Empire. The industry giants had finally noticed the teenage disruptor.
All right, moving into Phase 3, disrupting the industry giants. This is all about agile versus corporate.
So the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb reacts pretty much exactly like a bloated CEO. He retaliates against this nimble disruptor by sending absolutely overwhelming resources to just squash him out of existence. Faced with these massive armies, Shivaji completely changes the rules of the game and implements a strict, agile framework. Step 1, avoid traditional warfare. You literally never fight the giant where the giant is strongest. Step 2, utilize mountain forts to leverage his super lean structure and unique environment. And Step 3, launch surprise ambushes through guerrilla warfare. He was pivoting constantly, keeping the corporate giant completely off balance.
You see, the empire was predictable. They were traditional, and they were painfully slow-moving. Their massive size actually became a huge liability in that rugged terrain.
Shivaji's tactics, on the flip side, were lightning fast, entirely untraditional, and practically impossible to predict. And here's a crucial leadership lesson. This extreme agility helped him maintain intense team loyalty during some really tough transitions. His followers absolutely loved him because his tactics actively protected their lives. It made him a legendary hero to his team and an absolute nightmare for his corporate competitors.
Phase 4. Escaping professional deadlocks. Let's talk about the royal trap.
The Empire finally realizes they can't beat him in the mountains, so they try a different tactic: diplomacy. They invite Shivaji to a royal meeting. But it's a trap, a devastating trap. He gets slapped with house arrest right in the heart of enemy territory. Translating this to modern terms, this is your ultimate professional deadlock, or a totally hostile corporate takeover. His momentum was completely halted. He's physically trapped, completely isolated from his core team, surrounded by enemy guards. Basically, everybody looking in assumed his startup had completely failed and the story was over.
So seriously, ask yourself, how do you escape when everyone tells you the story is over? How does a leader navigate this kind of high-stake, seemingly final moment of absolute business failure? When your company is locked out, when the hostile takeover seems complete? How in the world do you engineer a pivot from a position of absolute weakness?
Well, you use the very system that imprisoned you to break out. According to the historical legend, Shivaji noticed that these massive baskets of sweets were being sent out of his confinement area every single day to be distributed to religious figures. So what does he do? He and his son literally hide inside these large baskets and are carried right past the Empire's absolute best, elite guards. I mean, it's just a staggering display of out-of-the-box thinking. He literally vanished into thin air. And this miraculous escape completely humiliated the bloated empire. Instead of ending his career, it actually grew his brand and his legend exponentially.
Which leads us to our final phase, scaling a lasting legacy, the rise of a kingdom.
Escaping was one thing, but to truly win long-term, Shivaji had to make that massive transition from being a nimble rebel into a sustainable organization. He had to scale his startup into a full-blown enterprise. Let's just trace this incredible path of growth. At 16, you have that initial market entry. Then, the rebellion phase, using agile guerrilla warfare to survive and disrupt the space. But then comes the kingdom phase. He didn't just stay in the woods fighting forever. He built real, lasting infrastructure. He strengthened massive forts, and, recognizing how absolutely crucial it is to control your supply chains, he built a powerful modern navy, completely from scratch. He successfully transformed his agile band of rebels into a highly structured, sovereign organization.
The core takeaways from Shivaji's life? They are insanely relevant for any leader today. He became this lasting symbol of resistance. He absolutely refused to surrender, even when he was trapped right in the heart of the enemy empire. But most importantly, he proved that strategy, courage, and sheer determination can defeat even the most massive monopolies. He isn't remembered centuries later because he started with the biggest army. He's remembered because his absolute resilience and his inclusive, agile leadership challenged the strongest powers on Earth and actually won.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I really want to leave you with one final thought to apply to your own life and your own career. You've seen the blueprint. You've seen exactly how agility beats size and how a founder's clear, unwavering vision can outmaneuver endless capital. So, the question is, what empire is your strategy going to disrupt today? Thanks for watching, and keep building your kingdom.